What's going on, collectors? Optical 20 back for another video review. This time it's G.I. Joe Retaliation Storm Shadow. It's an older figure, but we're in isolation, so might as well bust out my older figures and start, I guess, reviewing them. I don't have any Hot Toys left, so... But if you want to order more Hot Toys, head over to BigBadToyStore.com. Just click the link down below. They offer $4 shipping. They double box your item, and most of their pre-orders doesn't have NRD, so you can kind of change your mind anytime and not be hooked with that NRD. Now, going back to the figure, it's nice, clean box. I personally think this is one of the most underrated figures that Hot Toys has released. Now, mind you, this has been released in 2013 or 14, something like that. So a good 6-7 years ago. And you know, back then, obviously the technology is different compared now. You know, they're better in a lot of areas. Paint application mostly. The sculpt, I'm pretty sure, has improved. But this is one of those things where it's still, even up to this day, it would hold, you know, it would hold true to those figures. Unfortunately, the movie wasn't well received, so therefore, you know, the figure kind of suffered because of that. But as far as quality and in the character itself, I believe the character, you know, the actor portrayed this very well. The head sculpt was really good. This is one of those hand sculpt that you see. Some of here you can see the age, you know, as far as he's sculpting, but you know, some of the figures does, but not this figure. I mean, I think it looks pretty great, even though his costume is white. It didn't really deteriorate for me that much, honestly. The fabric is still intact. The body was a bit loose. That's the only thing I could say. But you see the accessories, even his samurai, his swords are die cast. So this is back in 2014. So sometimes you would expect like a lower quality of some sort, but it's the exact opposite, because I look at this. I didn't even clean this up. So if I put in like a chrome finish in here, this would look a lot better. But you can see some fingerprints that I do have. I was just lazy. I figured I've had this figure since 14, and I figured no one's gonna watch this review since even back then, because the movie wasn't well received, and the sales were just horrible for this figure. It sat on the shelf for quite some time. Now if you try to snipe them, they're still not that expensive, honestly. Maybe you can get this for under $250 or maybe $250. You know, I think it depends on the figure. Him and Snake Eyes are a bit, you know, up there, but Roadblock and Joe Colton, which I would review as well, you know, they're still pretty reasonable priced, you know, even with the popularity of The Rock. That, you know, if you get the head sculpt, the body's great too. But overall, this entire line of figures, I feel like, is very underrated. You know, I got this for retail back then, maybe a little bit slightly lower than retail, because back then, you know, Sideshow was offering some spectacular deals back then. And so you can see he has one of these Ninja Stars, and it's made out of plastic. This is one of those things where it's not die cast, but it's okay. I mean, there's 3 of them that comes in. I only put 2. I didn't see the one in his pocket, because he actually does have a pouch in his belt that you can store this in. And he does have a two-tone gun as well. And from the looks of this looks like I don't know, a Glock. It seems like, I'm not too familiar with it, but it seems the same gun as Snake Eyes does have, because you can see the logo on the grip. You can see the rail on the bottom there, two-tone. It actually is spring-loaded, so it like kind of cocks back. You can see the hammer. It actually does articulate as well. So, you know, everything just feels like Hot Toys from 2004, which is, I would say, in accessory wise, a bit more premium, and anyone who's been collecting for a while would notice as well. He got those. Now he does have a smaller sword in here, and then you can connect them together. If I rewatched the movie, believe it or not, you know what, the movie, honestly, the movie, I find it okay. It was entertaining, I suppose. It wasn't the best, you know, the script writing. Everything else, it's kind of, you know, you probably melt some brain cells or 2 watching that movie, but it's not the worst movie that I've seen. You know, that's the only thing I would say. It produced great figures. That's all I'm gonna leave it out there. This one's not die cast. It's made out of plastic, but it's okay, because the way you store them, I would say if they are die cast, they would just slide out of his back. And you can see that head sculpt right there, which is tremendous, by the way. And for those newbies that haven't seen this stand, yes, Hot Toys used to make this oval stand that saves space. So I mean, it doesn't look appealing right now because if you only have like a couple of figures, but you would appreciate those oval stands once you reach, you know, more than 30 figures and you have limited space because they don't take up too much space. That's where you would appreciate those compared to those. Not even that, the standard stands now for Hot Toys kind of like those hexagon stand, which is still, you know, oval stands still smaller. So I vote for them to come back. But as far as the figure itself, as you can see here, he's made out of fabric. Just there's no limitation of articulation here, even the arms, because it's two separate costume, I would say, like from the like from his torso to his arms. So there's not a, you know, you don't get hindered articulation whatsoever. But as far as like the tug and pull of, you know, raising the arm or bending the elbows, that's where you're kind of gonna have some trouble. Now I wouldn't say trouble, but some challenges if you want to pose him dynamically. Now the pants, it's okay, you can put him in a split actually if you want to. It's loose enough that you could do that. However, the body that I got was a little bit loose than normal, because I'm telling you, like, as soon as I've had them since 2014 or 15, whatever the case may be. I put them on the shelf and never touched them till, you know, the few days ago when I was like scoundering around. It's like I got nothing to do. I'm here at home. I got no new figures because everything got delayed. I'm not blaming anyone. I know the situation now. So I was like, you know what? Let me dig through some of the stuffs that I do have, and maybe some people would get interested, because maybe someone is looking for G.I. Joe figures from Hot Toys, and yeah, you never know. You never know if they might find this review useful. And he looks nice, man. Look at the setup right here from the back. Two blades, and you know, like everything. This is what I love when it comes with a lot of accessories, and those accessories fits on a figure nicely. Like nothing gets left in the box. And I feel the same way with this entire line of G.I. Joe. Joe Colton, as many accessories that he does have, the magazines, the guns, and all that stuff, everything can fit on the actual figure, so nothing is being wasted. Even Snake Eyes, even Roadblock, who has a gazillion knives and blades and whatever, it fits all in his pocket, which is, you know, a beautiful thing. Nowadays it's either you don't get any accessories or you get tons of accessories that, you know, you would use for a photo op or two. And this guy comes with two head sculpts, two amazing head sculpts, if I might add. So this guy right here, if you can see his mask, if this was done today, this mask would be plastic, sort of Black Panther, you know. And I don't even blame them for doing that for Black Panther or Killmonger. But as you can see, it's an actual fabric, the same fabric that they used throughout the costume. So I gotta commend them for that. Even the mask that he is wearing, like this fabric on his nose, it's an actual fabric, and it's the same fabric that they used throughout his outfit. So that is amazing. And look at that head sculpt, man. Mind you, this is a 6-year-old head sculpt, and the paint application, the sculpting is still on point. You know, it can still stand in today's standards. And I forgot the name of the actor, but this is the same actor that played, I believe, T-1000 in the Terminator before Genesis, and he was pretty good in that role as well. So if you are planning to kit bash, I suppose, you know, that character, his hair is a bit different though. But you know, if you want to recast this or something, but look at the paint application, it is tremendous. It comes with two head sculpt, bunch of accessories. If I'm not mistaken, this was $185 back in the day. You know, I could be wrong with that, but I would say either it's less than $200 for sure. And with all that accessories and two head sculpt, nowadays that would be around $245, maybe not even $254. This would be a deluxe version of a figure that would release. He might actually come with the if this was released today, he would be either a standard, and there's a standard version maybe with one head sculpt, and if you do the deluxe, you'll probably get the this head sculpt and some shooting stars or whatever the case is. But just this figure itself, it is beautiful. Although I would say that, you know, unless you're a huge fan of Storm Shadow by itself, this is one of those figures where you kind of have to buy Snake Eyes to make it, feel right. Unless you're into just ninjas and this is the only one you can find. I mean, don't get me wrong, it still looks nice by himself, but you would feel incomplete like if you buy him now and you can't find a good deal for Snake Eyes, for example. I feel like you would hunt Snake Eyes as well down the line. So it's kind of like not unlike Joe Colton. Joe Colton is a good figure as well, and it's Bruce Willis. And the outfit itself is, you can use that for so many ways, like the military outfit. You can use it, for kit bash purposes and whatnot. And here he is, looking nice, like bended knees. And there's, like I said, it's your imagination. The only one that's gonna stop you here from posing this figure, and the loose joints. Mine is, it holds pretty well. But I would say like on the lower leg section, that's where I'm kind of like having a little bit of trouble. It's a bit looser than what I would expect. For example, Snake Eyes, which I bought them pretty much at the same time, but that one holds pretty well still. And he got assortment of hands, so he's kind of leaning forward. This is the problem if you shoot something live instead of a picture. In a picture, I can kind of like position the camera so you can tell the story a little bit better, unlike if it's live. Like it's moving like this, especially rotating, and I have very limited access to some base. And here he is trying to get the sword. As you can see, his arms are bent pretty nicely there. Even the wrist joints, for me to be able to have him hold the sword on his back, and he's actually is holding it. Like I inserted the sword inside a peg, which is a bit of a challenge by itself. The only thing that you got to be careful is I noticed that it would pull the sheath on his back. It's only being held by, I would say, some glue. And mind you, this is what, like 6-year-old figure, so the glues are Hot Toys is notorious for the glues fading or not being well made with their quality control. So that is something to keep an eye on. So you gotta be, if you buy this even new, let's say new in box, that the owner hasn't opened them, I would even be more scared for something like that compared to something that has been opened, because at least the one that's open, you can kind of inspect it. If it's not been opened yet, you don't know if the nose has paint scuffs and all that stuff. Or luckily for this figure, it doesn't have any lights. That's why if you're not buying it from Big Bad or Sideshow, that's a bit tricky, because if you're buying a sealed item, I mean, coming from Sideshow, they still have some issues. And mind you, like this guy from selling it on eBay or whatever, he might be a really careful guy, but manufacturing issues happens a lot, especially on Hot Toys. So, if you're trying to buy this guy, that's what I would look for, is those, the glues being out of state. Because that happened to my Snake Eyes as well. You see the back of his pouches, which I would review as well. You'd see some glues had just deteriorated, and that's not my fault. That's no fault of, I'm in Chicago and there's not a whole lot of humidity in here. So it's pretty much just cold in here all throughout the year. But here he is right next to Snake Eyes, and this thing is a beauty. Look at those two. Very, very underrated, these two figures, and unappreciated, I would say, by most collectors. They've been hampered by the movie. But as a standalone figure, if we're just talking about figure itself, I think they're excellent, but I understand it's hard to separate the figure from the movie. And you can ask the villain from Spider-Man, Electro. He's an okay figure. He lights up and all that stuff, but they're practically was giving them away at some point. And there you go, guys. This is Storm Shadow. So for any G.I. Joe fans out there like myself, I was a G.I. Joe fan before the movie, and I'm gonna be a G.I. Joe fan after the movie. So this was a must-have for me. But if you're planning to pick this up, most likely in secondhand and eBay or whatnot, you are, depending on the price and depending on how big of a fan you are, you're not gonna regret it. Again, depending on the price and the condition of the item, because mind you, the costume is white. It's a lot of things can happen. Like if the owner is eating Cheetos while playing around with it, then that's a disaster. But if you have any questions, just feel free to comment down below. And if you think this is one of the most underrated figure, let me know as well. If you have another thought, put it down if I'm missing anyone, because there's a tons of figures out there that probably deserves that title as well. But yeah, if you haven't done so, please subscribe to my channel. Like me on Facebook and follow me on Instagram. I post new pictures there pretty much for the most part. And if you do Twitch, if you like video games, if you just want live streaming commentary from me, follow me on Twitch as well. I'll put the link down below, and I see you in the next review.